Hi, I'm Adam, and we've got a lot to discuss this week, especially with The Girl on the Train, so I'll try not to get derailed in week 41 of making dollars and cents at the box office. The psychological thriller mystery film The Girl on the Train, directed by Tate Taylor of The Help fame, took the number one spot this week with $24.5 million, $10 million over the number two spot. Now that may not have broken any records, but I think this film has some staying power due to positive word of mouth. The Girl on the Train is about three women, Rachel, Megan, and Anna, and how their lives intersect, but I'm not going to say any more to avoid spoilers. But this film is a strong thriller with some pulse-pounding action and masterful performances. Emily Blunt leads the talent-steeped cast as Rachel, an alcoholic woman struggling with blackouts. But even though this requires a lot of range in terms of energy and intensity, it's actually only the outer layer of a very intricate performance that really deserves some Oscar buzz despite the fact that this is just a thriller. And then there's Haley Bennett, who all but steals the show as Megan, who's a woman who is easily idealized, but beneath all of her allure is a chilling past and some dark secrets. And it's her character that brings so many comparisons to Gone Girl from a few years ago. But after seeing both films, I think I have to disagree, and I can't tell you why because you should go see these movies. Rebecca Ferguson plays Anna, a wife and mother who has some secrets of her own, and her performance is far less abrasive than the first two, which is exactly the balance that the film needed. Luke Evans also shines in a turn-on-a-dime performance as Scott, Megan's husband, and lastly Justin Theroux, who plays Tom, Anna's husband, whose performance is strewn with subtleties and an exercise in range. But beyond the brilliant cast, this is a strong adaptation of a novel that, even though it doesn't bring anything new to the psychological thriller table, there's something to be said for a genre piece done exceptionally well, and that is exactly how to describe The Girl on the Train. And coming in at the number 6 spot this week is the highly controversial Birth of a Nation from first-time director Nate Parker, which pulled in $7 million on a reported $10 million budget. Considering it was the opening wide release of an independent film, that is not too shabby, especially factoring in its record-breaking purchase from last year's Sundance Festival. Unfortunately, however, the controversy and the festival record-breaking, as well as the sensitive and sensational subject matter, is really the only flash that this film brought to the pan. Speaking from a technical standpoint, the audience is required to give Parker's direction plenty of benefit of the doubt, with arguably too much screen time given to his spotty performance as Nat Turner than on the powerful and potent story at hand. Which is expected of an independent film from a first-time director, and that's more than understandable, save for the fact that this is a film that strives to make a statement and leave a legacy, and with that level of expectation, there's going to be that level of scrutiny. Parker's performance did have moments of brilliance, and his conviction is undeniable, but he never really allows the rest of his cast to shine. Armie Hammer felt more like an outline as opposed to ever coming to life, and Aja Naomi King has the talent to pull off an unforgettable performance, but was hindered by the weak writing. Perhaps the biggest disappointment about this film is what it should and could have been, pulling its title from one of the most racist and somehow still revered films in all of the history of cinema. To put it bluntly, if this film were titled anything other than Birth of a Nation, it would be an underwhelming and wholly forgettable story about slavery. Then again, grabbing attention was Parker's intention, but once given that attention, the message was less than satisfying. Now obviously I'm a white man and therefore have no conceivable idea of what it is to be a black person. No matter how many different perspectives I hear from black people, I cannot imagine what it would be like, and therefore I cannot give proper criticism as to whether or not this film captures that accurately. If anything, I can only commend it for being told in a fresh way. This is a story about slavery that doesn't have a white savior character, which is perhaps the only criticism I have of the far superior 12 Years a Slave. There are no white characters to which a white audience can feel comfortable relating, and none of them are redeemable from their evil lifestyle of owning or condoning owning another human being, and that is indescribably refreshing. For that reason alone, this movie should exist. Perhaps the most troubling aspect, though, is the way that this film handles the subject of violence. Now, from a historical perspective, yes, Nat Turner led a revolt. This is a historical fact, and they did kill many people, and I'm by no means discrediting Birth of a Nation for depicting that in a realistic way. I am, however, submitting that the way that this film handles violence within the parameters of filmmaking glorifies that violence, and that it promotes Nat Turner as a Christian hero for using violence to make his message heard. More so, the fact that Turner uses his righteous fury to defend his violence is in direct opposition with the teachings of Christianity. There was no hero's downfall for Turner or a descent into violence, but rather it shows Turner having a revelation and suggests that God suggests and permits this violence. And although that is factual in Turner's life, that is a dangerous concept for anyone regardless of race or gender. Revenge is rejected and murder is forbidden in the Christian faith, and even though there is a line in there that says this is not revenge, the actions prove otherwise. And to have the chance to make a film about violence only creating more violence, with the entire country watching and not take that chance is a missed opportunity. It is a dangerous idea to bring to modern civilization that the oppressed should murder the oppressors and then glorify that idea. And in a time in our culture when we desperately need to hear and truly listen to black voices, how disappointing that this film, a response to the 1915 racist original film, chooses to say an eye for an eye and incite violent revenge, instead of the truth that violence only begets more violence. Furthermore, this film's depiction of violence against women is an ugly flaw. There's more than one instance of rape, and even though it happens off-screen, the real problem here is that the victims never get their fair due of on-screen response. They are not treated as people who have had an unspeakable act forced upon them, but just fuel for male anger that this happened to their wives and sisters and mothers. This would be a problem for any film, but this in particular is concerning considering Nate Parker's history with his mistreatment of women and his perception of masculinity and gender roles. It cannot go unsaid that his rape allegations make the depiction of women in his film questionable and concerning, and the fact that this particular rape isn't even based in historical fact but is an entirely fictional addition is all the more unsettling. It's a shame that a film that has so much potential to make a positive difference has so much controversy surrounding it, but it's even more so a shame that yet another film exists where women are only valued in their relation to men and not as actual human beings. The utter mistreatment of black women in a film that has the intention of promoting the visibility and respect of black lives is heartbreaking. With all of that said, weighed, and considered, it is undeniable that this is a decent debut film. And yes, it has a messy message, but this is not a failure. How admirably confident of Nate Parker to have chosen this subject as his first film, and it still made a splash, even if it wasn't an entirely positive one. It is imperfect, but it is important. The biggest accomplishment here is that this is one of many films yet to come. It is a springboard from which many more films from and about the black perspective can and should arise. We need to support black filmmakers and listen to their stories. Hopefully these stories and stories from multiple other backgrounds will hold the message true that we need to shed violence and focus on unity and education, treating minorities of any cultural background as the human beings that they are and not as lesser due to their skin color or their culture, and demolish the implicit racism and privilege so apparent and aggressive and rampant in white existence. Okay. And since I'm obligated to mention all of the newcomers, middle school worst years of my life got the number 7 spot. And looking ahead to this weekend, we will see the release of Warner Brothers' The Accountant, starring Ben Affleck, which I believe is going to take the top of the box office considering it has a 3,000 plus theater release and Ben Affleck's star power. We will also see the release of Kevin Hart's new stand-up comedy blockbuster, What Now?, which covers his 2015 massive world tour. Kevin Hart does have a massive following, but stand-up comedy movies don't generally do well in theaters, so this one's more of a toss-up. And finally, Max Steel, a superhero toy film adaptation that I really don't think anyone's going to go see despite its 2,000 plus theater release. Well, that's all for this week. Go see a film because art is important and it makes a difference, and we will see you next time on Making Dollars and Cents at the Box Office.